Hi, good evening. Good evening, everyone. How are you all?
Hello, everybody. Hello.
We'll just give people a couple more minutes to log on and then we'll get going.
I started a video today, yoga basics video in Spanish, and I loved it from the website.
Hi, everyone. And did you manage to follow on along okay?
Yeah.
Perfect. Whose was that? Was that Andrea or Kelly?
Oh, I think it was Kelly, but I just looked at it. I'm going to look and tell you. Oh, wait a minute. I'm afraid to look and tell you. Can I do that here without exiting myself? I didn't finish it, but I just super enjoyed it.
Yeah, Kelly is Venezuelan, but has lived in Medellin here for quite a number of years now. Andrea is Colombo-American, so she lived in New York for quite a bit of her life, but she was born here in Medellin and she moved back sort of later on. So it's interesting because each of our teachers has quite a different accent, quite a different way of saying things. If you join Jamie from Power Yoga and Ashtanga Yoga, she's from Peru. So again, she's got another kind of slightly different accent from the other two. So it's kind of interesting, I think, to compare the styles of each of the different girls in terms of their language.
Yeah, it was Kelly.
Nice, yeah.
Very easy to understand. Mm-hmm. So it was a nice practice too. I got about halfway through it.
Cool, good, awesome. So last night, I asked you to learn 13 new words for different parts of the body. So we're going to start with, in class today, is to take a little look at some of those words. Let me see if I can share my screen. And we can add it to what we were working on yesterday. All right, let's see. Perfect. Okay, so hopefully now you can all see a picture of the human body that we wrote on yesterday. So yeah, those 13 words that you learned, they were just meant to be words that were new to you yesterday. So they may or may not be on this diagram. You might have picked some other words as well that weren't on. So let's start with Vicky. Vicky, what were some of the words that, what was one of the words that you learned last night?
One of them was the coronilla, la coronilla.
Great. Mm-hmm. And what is your coronilla?
The top of the head.
The top of the head, very nice. Mm-hmm. Perfect. Diane, what was one of the words that you learned last night?
Empeine. Los empeine.
Mm-hmm.
And what I heard the top of the foot, and the teacher used that in the video that I watched today, and I understood it and knew what it meant because of yesterday. So
awesome. Perfect. Juliana, what was one of the words you learned for homework?
I learned la clavicula.
La clavicula. Great. Let's put that on there because I don't think we've got that right now. So,
how did you?
So I'm just going to pop it on the diagram here. La clavicula. Yeah, la clavicula, which of course is the clavicle in English, or the collarbone. Perfect. Yeah, what was one of the words that you learned yesterday?
Los isquiotibiales.
Nice, nailed it. Love it. Very good. Los isquiotibiales. Well done. So that what are those?
The hamstrings, right?
The hamstrings. That's correct. Yeah. Joanna, what was one of the words that you learned last night?
Axila.
Axilas, good. So we haven't got that one up there. So we're going to put it up. El axila. And what is your axila?
Armpit.
Your armpit. Very nice. So Catherine, welcome. We're just sharing some of the vocabulary that we learned yesterday, one of the 13 words. What was one of the words that you learned last night?
La muñeca. The wrist.
Sorry, I can't quite hear you.
Can you hear me now?
A little better, yeah.
Let me see. Sorry, I'm on a different computer. I had a Zoom issue.
Okay.
The la muñeca. Muñeca.
Yes, la muñeca. So it's an ñ. So it's yeah, your muñeca is your wrist. Very nice. Let's do one more round. Vicky, what was one of the words that you learned last night? Another one.
El mentón.
El mentón. What's your mentón?
Your chin.
Very nice. Diane?
La cresta ilíaca.
Nice. So la cresta ilíaca is your iliac crest. Good. Juliana?
La zona lumbar.
La zona lumbar, one of the 3 areas of the spine, the main spinal column. Good. Claire?
La pantorrilla.
La pantorrilla, good, which is one of the 2 words for which muscle?
Calf.
The calf muscle. Do you remember what the other option was that's not pantorrilla?
El gemelo.
El gemelo. Very nice. Well done. Joanna?
La entrepierna.
One more time?
La entrepierna.
Yeah, la entrepierna is the area of the groin, basically. So another word that we can use for the area of the groin is la ingle.
Oh.
Yeah?
Andrew, is that, I've read that plural before.
What's that? Sorry.
Ingles, not like the language, but Ingles.
Interesting.
Plural. Is it ever, it's not written plural?
Well, let me have a little look. So, I mean, when I've heard it in English, when I've heard it in Spanish, sorry, it's always been in the singular, la ingle. I don't know, maybe sometimes in English we also say groins, but no, I mean, honestly, I've only ever seen it in the singular there. So if you're wanting more of a muscle for the inner thigh, it's better to use, I think it's el muslo superior. Let me just check that up for you all. Yeah, el muslo interno. El muslo interno. So let's pop that on our diagram as well. El muslo interno. Because yeah, la entrepierna is really used for like kind of the groins, I think.
Do people say something for the core in Spanish, your core?
Good question. Yeah, so el abdomen is the most common word for your abdomen, yeah, and for the core in general, el abdomen, yeah. Because in English, I mean, the core kind of denominates that whole sort of central area that goes, you know, sort of all the way around the body like a belt, right? So, but in Spanish, honestly, I've only ever heard of it referred to as el abdomen. Great, perfect. Where did we get to? Catherine, one more word from you that was new to you yesterday.
Sure, la coronilla.
La coronilla, good, your crown. One other word that we didn't put up yesterday was el corazón, of course. Anyone? El corazón?
The heart.
The heart, very good. All right, so what I'm going to do now is do a brief exercise with you. What I want you to do is to create a grid using 4 lines. So for those of you who are a little bit mathematically challenged, it looks a little bit something like this. So make it nice and big so that you can write a word in each of the 9 spaces. So a 3 by 3 grid. And as I say, make it nice and big so that you can fit the word in each gap. And in each one of your spaces, I would like you to choose one of the words that you see here on the presentation. So you might put corazón in one of them, you might put mano in another, you might put cuádriceps in another, until you've chosen 9 words in total and you've filled your whole grid. So whenever you're ready, you can choose your 9 words. Okay, give you 1 more minute to finish filling out your grid. Okay, perfect. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to move my computer and I'm going to point to different parts of my body. I want you to tell me what those parts are in Spanish, and then if that one of those parts appears on your grid, you can mark it off. If you get 3 in a line, of course, it's línea. And if you fill your entire grid, you've got bingo. All right? So whenever you're ready, let me just turn all of this around so you can see me. Okay. Can everybody see me okay? You might not be able to see the top of my head, but we'll just have to improvise with that. Okay, so let's start off. What is this part of the body?
Codo.
El codo. So remember again that D is a kind of a soft feeling in Spanish, codo. So it's not codo and it's not codo, it's codo. Good? Okay, below the codo we have our...
Antebrazo.
Very nice, antebrazo. Well done. Bonus point, who can tell me what the 2 muscles on the upper arm are?
El bíceps y el tríceps.
Biceps and triceps. Very nice. Okay, let's move down the body. What do we have here?
La rodilla.
La rodilla. A bonus point for anyone who can tell me the other words that we learned for rodilla yesterday.
Rótula.
Rótula and
Patella.
patella. Excellent. Below the rodilla, we have our...
Espinillas.
La espinilla. Good. Sometimes people talk about this as la canilla as well. Good. And moving around onto the back of the lower leg, we have our...
Gemelos.
Los gemelos or...
Pantorrilla.
Pantorrilla. Good. So remembering to note each of these off on your grid. All right. Well, okay. So I'll come a little bit close to the camera. What are these?
Los ojos.
Los ojos. Good. Okay. This?
La boca.
La boca. Good. And inside our boca we have,
Lengua.
and
Los
Los
dientes.
dientes.
fingers. Well done. Okay, what about this?
Nariz.
Nariz.
Nariz and?
Frente.
El frente.
Excellent. Well done. Okay, so moving down, what about this area?
Pecho.
Pecho. And on our pecho we have which bones?
Esternón.
Well, we do have the esternón aquí, yeah?
Las costillas.
Las costillas. Very nice. And underneath our costillas we have our
Panza.
muscle.
Estómago.
So the muscle that's responsible for pumping blood around the body,
Oh, el corazón.
el corazón. And remember that corazón is masculine, right? A lot of people make the mistake of saying that it's feminine. Oh, another thing that we didn't do yesterday is how can we refer to this?
Do we say las nalgas or do we not say that?
We could say las nalgas, and I've certainly heard teachers who do.
Trasero.
Else.
So we could say las nalgas with the risk of scandalizing the very genteel Colombian ladies that we've got here. Especially the elderly ladies will find that very worthy of a titter. We could have los glúteos.
Glúteos. Okay.
So your glute muscles, right? So las nalgas, los glúteos. Good. And beneath, well, let's talk about this whole area of bone here. What can we call this area of bone?
Caderna.
Almost.
Is that my word? Like ilíaca? Cresta ilíaca?
Well, the cresta ilíaca is a part of what I'm talking about.
Entonces, la cintura?
Las caderas.
Las caderas.
Yeah, and we also talk about la pelvis, right? So the whole of that area of bone is las caderas or la pelvis. Very good. And the different parts of the pelvis that we talked about yesterday, what were the different parts that we mentioned?
El sacro.
El sacro, very good. And beneath your sacro, you have your
Coxis.
coccyx. Good. And then at to the sides of the coccyx, what do we have? That you sit on?
Los isquiones.
Los isquiones. Very good. Well done. Okay, let's move up the spinal column. So above our sacro, we have the
Sacrolumbar. La zona lumbar.
lumbar. Very good. Above the zona lumbar, we have the
La zona torácica.
excellent. And then above the zona torácica, we have the
La zona cervical.
excellent. Has anybody got a línea yet in their bingo?
Sí.
Excellent. Well done. Nobody's got the whole bingo yet.
No.
All right. Okay, so what else can we talk about? Oh yeah, what about this whole joint here?
Los hombros.
Los hombros. Important not to confuse that with hombres, because of course we had someone who was teaching here and said, vamos a relajar los hombres. People would have thought that was absolutely hilarious when they heard it. We're gonna relax the men. Okay, so los hombros. Underneath your hombro, you have your
La.
axilla. Good. And then moving on to the back of the body. So what do we have here?
Espalda.
It is a part of your espalda, and specifically it's what bone?
Omóplatos. Is that?
Omóplatos, and the alternative is?
Escápula.
Las escapulas. Very good.
Escápula.
All right, excellent. So moving to the area of the neck. Do we have a word for neck?
Cuello.
El cuello. Good. And a word for this part?
La garganta.
La garganta. And a word for this part?
Oh, I don't know.
La nuca.
La nuca. Very nice. The nape. Well done. Beautiful. On either side of the neck, we have
La clavícula.
la clavícula. And a bonus for the muscles.
Deltoideos.
Pectorales mayor.
I always get those mixed.
Los pectorales mayor.
Yeah, los pectorales. Good. Excellent.
Deltoideos están aquí. Okay.
Los deltoides son estos músculos encima del hombro.
Okay. Deltoides.
Okay. Excellent. Okay, so what about these?
Orejas.
Las orejas. And then what about the hearing part of the ear?
Los oídos.
Los oídos. Very nice. Okay. Moving back down to the foot. What about this here?
El tobillo.
El tobillo. Good. Here.
El talón.
Talón.
El talón. Can anybody remember the word for the whole of the sole of the foot?
La-
Planta.
La planta. And the word for your foot fingers?
Los dedos del pie.
Los dedos del pie. It's really interesting to me as well that here in Latin America, they love to make everything sound little and cutesy. So the linguistic term for that is diminutive, yeah? And the most common diminutives in Spanish are ito, ita, and illo, illa, yeah? So it's really common here to hear the teacher saying los deditos de los pies, yeah? So just be aware that might happen. In Spain, they really don't like making things diminutive. They think it sounds too kind of, I don't know, kind of too cutesy for their taste in peninsular Spain, which is why they get really irritated when they have to speak with call centers here in Medellin. There's sort of big business here, and they say, oh, I just can't stand the accent. But anyway, you'll hear it a lot here, los deditos de los pies. But here in Medellin, I mean, it's amazing sometimes. Ay, me regalas un cafecito con un poquito de leche, por favor. You know, you'll hear a lot of itos and itas. Very good. Okay, so we've got el talón, el tobillo, el pie, and the top of the foot.
El empeine.
El empeine.
Empeine. I can't say that right. Empeine.
El empeine. Nice. Okay, two more major muscle groups. First of all, the three muscles that we've got on the back of the leg.
Isquiotibiales.
Hooray, got it. Isquiotibiales. And the muscles, the four muscles on the front of the leg.
Quadriceps.
Los quadriceps. Has
Bingo.
anyone, you've got bingo, well done. Okay, excellent. Okay, I think that's probably enough for today on the body.
Did we learn a word for lungs?
We did not, but we can put it up there if we like.
I mean, maybe you don't use it, but I just feel like I sometimes.
So you definitely use it in pranayama. So we're going to be seeing it next Wednesday. Los pulmones. Yeah, los pulmones. Llenamos los pulmones con aire. Vaciamos los pulmones. So lungs. Anything else that has occurred to you?
What verb did you use, Andrew, for llenar?
Llenar los pulmones, yeah, to fill the lungs.
Yeah.
Good. So today is all about verbs, right? So the idea with today's class, let me just see if I can find my notes. Yeah. The idea of today's class is to have a look at all of the different verbs of action and start to look as well a little bit about how we can use verbs in a simplified way. So what I'd like you to do is I'm going to split you into two groups now, and I want you to draw the different postures in sun salutation A. So there we go. We've got some nice stick figures there. So I'll leave that up on the screen for a moment. So the idea is to leave space next to each one of your stick figures, okay? Once you've drawn each of the stick figures, I want you to start thinking in English, okay, not in Spanish, in English, which verbs might you use for each posture? So, for example, in Tadasana, I might use the verb root. I might use the verb relax. In Urdhva Hastasana, I might use raise or elevate. In Uttanasana, I might use the verb fold or relax, yeah? So just to pop in English, between 1 and 3 verbs that you might use in each posture. So who can tell me what's the first thing I'd like you to do?
Think in English.
What about the very first thing?
Write the stick figure of sun salutation A and then leave space to describe, use verbs for what we would say.
Excellent. And then those 1 to 3 verbs are going to be in English. All right. So does anybody have any questions before we move into our rooms?
Will the picture be up?
What was that, sorry?
If the picture will still be up for drawing.
I don't think so, but because, yeah, but see if you can do it from memory. All right, so whenever you're ready, you should be able to click on your room.
So
There's 3 of us, right?
we have Andrew there. Andrew, I have to confess, I have this sheet. Do you want me to turn it over and hide it?
No. It's this is not a memory exercise. This is just yeah, to help you out.
I'll share it with my team.
Sure.
Thank you.
So I think root your feet. Stand straight would be the first. Straighten.
Yeah. I think root's a good word. You might even say like, like activate your legs or,
I like that. Activate. Yes. People, yoga teachers say stretch your top of your head or lift.
lengthen, yeah.
Lengthen. Lift. Oh, we have 4 now. Uh-oh.
4 is fine. It's just that I didn't want you to put like 29 verbs or something for each one. But yeah, as long as you're keeping sort of a reasonable number, it's fine.
Okay. So the next one is Urdhva Hastasana. I'm sure everybody knows sun salutation A anyway, so.
Well, here I would say lift for sure. Right?
What about raise?
Yeah.
I think there's we could put both because I have 2 ideas of verbs in Spanish that I'm not supposed to be thinking in, sorry. And Andrew can clarify which is best.
Yeah, I would even say fold is a verb I would use, right? So fold.
For the first one, maybe, well, I have samastitihi, and then the next one is,
Oh, I see. Okay, you had it.
but fold is good. So we have lift, raise, stretch.
Yeah, and like, yeah, raise your arms. Reach.
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 Which is a good one.
Okay.
Raise.
Juliana, do you have any other ideas?
Or lift and raise. Those are usually the 2 that I use.
Okay.
Or,
Now, or what?
oh no.
Root down into your big toe mount, outer edges of feet, and your heels evenly.
Mm-hmm. I like that to balance.
Finding your balance. Yeah.
So
Balance.
just want individual verbs here if possible, as opposed to kind of phrases, because we're gonna find it rather difficult to translate whole chunks of phrase into Spanish. So it's better just to think of things like root or ground or press in this context.
Okay. That makes sense. So like to stand, to root, to ground.
Lengthen.
Sure.
Yeah, push. Well, I guess that's for later, but you said that. That was one of the words I remembered from the online workout I did last night.
Nice.
Okay.
Okay, and then do we feel like we have enough? Do you want to?
Yeah.
How much time do we have, Andrew?
Around about 3 or 4 minutes more.
Okay, so yeah, we should probably move on. So then, Claire, you had said to rise or to raise.
Rise. Yeah.
So are
The-
we on?
The verb in English would be raise, yeah? Rise is intransitive, raise is transitive. So raise would take an object, rise would not, if you see what I mean. So for example, you can say the sea levels are rising, yeah? But you can't say, let's rise the arms. That would be an incorrect usage of the verb there. You have to raise the
I
arms.
guess I see it more poetic, like just rise, you know?
Oh yeah, well that's
Like
fine.
to
Yeah,
rise in
use it for
something,
the,
you know? Like,
let's rise.
rise.
Yeah, nice, excellent. Then that works.
No, I don't mean like put your hands up. I just mean like, you know, become big.
The only reason that I talk about that is it's one of the most commonly misused verbs that I hear in yoga. So yeah,
Mm-hmm.
we're kind of used to hearing it used in that way.
So
Stretch.
Stretch.
Lengthen. Stretch. We're
Mhm.
on Urdhva Hastasana, right?
Yeah, the second
Yeah.
one. Yeah.
Mhm.
Lift.
Yeah.
We feel good about that. Should we move to the next?
Move on.
Okay, so then maybe to bend.
Yeah. Press. Relax.
I like that. To press.
reach, maybe?
Yeah.
Because we're reaching for the floor.
Yeah.
Okay, I like that. So we're forward folding, and then we do like the half lift.
Lift with
So to lift again, I guess.
Yeah. Lift. Lengthen.
lengthen, I like.
I've heard, could you say to open? Because you're kind of opening up in the center, like, your heart space, like your chest.
Say open. Yeah.
Okay. Awesome.
Chaturanga. So, ground.
Hold.
Yeah.
Hold.
Maybe lower.
Push.
Push we have, I think. Yeah, we were going.
Hold. Okay.
Do you guys say turn? Like turn your feet?
Oh, yeah. We'll do that one. We'll turn the feet. We'll be on the top of the feet on the next one.
Yeah. Flip.
For up dog.
Flip.
Oh, flip. Yep.
Your turn.
Push. Can you say push away?
Yep.
Lift. So lifting chest up.
Yep. Lifting, opening again.
Open. How about like shoulder blades back?
Can we say to roll? Roll.
Yeah. Roll.
Roll or rotate.
Yeah, rotate's good. What about like, like your gaze to look?
Yeah, we could say to look.
I think we're good with up dog.
I think so. Let's go down dog.
Press or root again. The heels.
We're gonna lift the seat.
Lengthen.
mhm.
Sorry, I'm just noticing your background right now. It's like this dude is like robbing a, I don't know what.
Yeah, you like that? It's my nephew. My 12-year-old nephew is playing some, who knows what he's playing. He's anxiously waiting for dinner, so I told him he could hang out in the background.
What about look?
Because you're looking down now, or between the knees, or wherever. Yeah.
What about breathe? To breathe.
Oh yeah. Maybe we should be breathing this whole time. You mean?
Breathe, and then of course inhale, exhale, kind of.
There's that. Yes, yes, yes.
We could say rotate because you're externally rotating your shoulders, your arms.
Okay, and then we come to the top of the mat again. So we're kind of in that forward fold again.
Half lift. And then forward fold.
We have fold.
I was like, oops, I forgot to draw my stick figure for it. To bend, to fold. Okay. So we did the half lift and then the fold.
That's the full Suya. We just did it.
And then do we need to still stand? I'm sorry, I was distracted by my nephews talking about dinner. And then we're going to lift the arms over the head. Do we do that? Do we come back up to stand?
Well, we pretty much did the full Surya.
Awesome.
But then we're just repeating it.
Yeah. I wasn't sure. Like I've kind of, I guess I got distracted with half lift and then forward fold.
Okay, so welcome back, everyone. Now, what I'm going to share with you here is the infinitive, okay? So who can tell me, what is an infinitive when it comes to language?
A verb that is not conjugated.
Yeah, so we might think about it as like the root or sort of base form of a verb, right? So it's, in English, we would follow it by the word to, and then the verb itself. So to stand, for example. Yeah? So there's no person, there's no tense, there's no mood. Okay? In Spanish, verbs that are in the infinitive usually end in AR, ER, or IR. Okay? So those are going to be your 3 different infinitives. Okay? Good. Perfect. So we're going to deal with both reflexive and just sort of regular verbs. We'll talk a little bit more about the reflexives a bit later on. Reflexive verbs end in se. Okay? And we'll talk a little bit more about why a bit later on. So let's begin with Tadasana, mountain pose. So somebody from group number 1. So that would be, I think, who was in group 1? Juliana, Diane, and Catherine, I think. So what verbs did you choose for Tadasana?
Root.
To root.
One
Nice.
of them.
Good. So to root in Spanish, does anybody know what the word for a root, like a root of a tree, is?
Raíz.
It's un raíz. Good. So the verb for to root has a prefix en. Enraizar. Enraizar. And that's followed usually by the preposition en. Don't worry if you're not really sure what that means, because we're going to be looking at that tomorrow. Okay, so enraizar is to root. Very good. Nice. So here we're going to be using it with an object. So for example, root the feet into the mat. Enraizamos los pies. Good. All right. Group number 2. What other words did you have for Tadasana?
To stand, to root, or to ground.
Yeah. So to ground and to root, is there a difference between those? In sort of what they kind of mean in English?
Probably not.
Yeah, I think we kind of use those synonymously, right? We use those interchangeably. There's not really any difference there. Okay, but to stand, that is a reflexive verb, okay? So we're going to create a different column for reflexive verbs. So, move that over so we can see it. Okay, so the verb for to stand is ponerse de pie. Who can translate that literally?
To put yourself on foot.
Yeah, to put yourself on foot. So it is something that you would use when you transition between a sitting and a standing position, or a kneeling and a standing position. So to come to standing. Good. All right. Well done. Does anybody have any other verbs that they might use for Tadasana?
Balance.
One more time.
Balance.
To balance. In what context would you say that? What would your cue be in English?
Find your balance.
Then balance is a noun. It's not a verb. Find is the verb in that context. Yeah. So you can use the word to kind of look for and to find, and that's buscar. Yeah. So to look for or to find is buscar in Spanish. So busca tu equilibrio. Yeah, to find your balance. Good. Okay, so let's move on to Urdhva Hastasana, so raising the arms over the head. Yeah, what verbs are we going to use? Somebody from group number 1.
For
To lift. So in English, we have several words: lift, raise, elevate. And in Spanish as well, there are several ways of expressing this idea. Does anybody know how we can say to lift, raise, or elevate in Spanish?
Alzar.
Alzar. That's probably one of the less common ones, but it's absolutely fine. Yeah? What else?
Is it sube or sube to go down?
Subir. Good. Yeah, subir. Anything else?
Levantar.
Levantar. And maybe one more. So think of an elevator, elevar. Yeah. So all of those words we can use pretty much interchangeably for to raise or lift. Subimos los brazos, levantamos los brazos, elevamos los brazos, alzamos los brazos. Good. Okay. Anything else that we might use for Urdhva Hastasana?
You had lengthen.
We can say lengthen. Good. So when in Spanish we're saying that something is long, what adjective would we typically use? What's the word in Spanish for long?
Largo.
Excellent. Largo. So you're going to see that in the middle of the verb for to lengthen, which is to make something longer. So it starts with the prefix a, then we've got the word largo, larg, and then we've got the suffix ar, alargar, to lengthen. So alargamos la coronilla, alargamos, here's another word that we didn't put on our body yesterday. What is the word for our side body?
Oh, el costado.
Nice, yes, good. El costado, or los costados, is your side body. Good, so alargamos los costados, lengthen the side body. Nice. Okay. So we've raised our arms, we've lengthened our side body. What comes next?
Forward fold or to bend.
So to bend or to fold. And I think it's worthwhile noting that there's a difference, right, between bending and folding. If I were to say to you in English, what is the difference between bending and folding? What would you tell me?
Fold is in half and bend is like a little curve.
Yeah, that's nice. So it's all kind of the degree to which it's done, right? So generally when we fold something, the idea is that we're kind of doubling it right back over on itself, yeah? So in Spanish, to fold is doblar, yeah? Literally to make something double. So that's to fold. To bend can be to a much lesser degree, right? So.
Andrew, we lost you.
Sorry, yeah. Does anybody know what in Spanish the verb for to bend is?
Is it girar?
So it's right there on the screen, flexionar, to bend. Because when we're flexing the muscle, what we're usually doing is we're reducing the angle in the joint that it's attached to, yeah? So flexionar, to bend. Okay, good. So we can fold, we can bend. Yeah, we can also relax, can't we, in a forward fold? So how are we going to say to relax in Spanish?
Relajarse.
Relajar. Good. So that it might be a reflexive verb, it might be relajarse, or it might just be a regular verb, depending on whether or not it has an object. And again, we're going to have a little look at that a little bit later on. So to relax. Good. Okay. So we come from a forward fold in Uttanasana what comes next in our sun salutation A?
Halfway lift.
A halfway lift. So, Ardha Uttanasana. What would you say in English?
Come up to a flat back.
What's that, sorry?
I'd say like come up to a flat back.
So to come up, so we could say that. We could use the verb like subir again. Yeah, what else?
Lengthen through spine.
Lengthen is a good one, yeah. So in my experience, when teachers guide this posture in Spanish, they don't talk about half raising. I've almost never heard that. They talk about extending the spine, okay? So alargar is a good verb, or extender, to extend. Or maybe we could have a word for to straighten as well. What is the word for straight? Yeah? If I wanted to give somebody instructions here and I would say to them, go straight, what word would they use?
Derecho.
Derecho. Good. So you're going to notice that word again in the middle here. So the prefix is en, then you've got derecho, dere, and then you've got the suffix sar, enderezar, to straighten. So enderezamos la columna, straighten the spine. Okay, good. So we're in Ardha Uttanasana, and now what's the next posture in our list?
Chaturanga.
Yeah, so either plank or chaturanga. So some people like to guide students first of all into plank and then get them to lower into chaturanga. So imagine you're in a half raised position. What are you going to guide people to do next?
Hop, walk, or step into plank.
Yeah, that's definitely important. What might you do before that? Imagine you've got your hands on your shins.
Place your hands on the mat.
Release.
Yeah, so maybe to place the hands on the mat, okay? Now there's a difference in English between put and place. What would you say that difference is?
Put, is that like putting something like an object?
Yeah, I think so. Yeah. So quite often put we use with an object in mind that's not a part of our body. Yeah. We don't often say, okay, put your hands on your shins. We usually use the verb place. Place has this idea of kind of being a bit more gentle or a bit more careful or a bit more accurate. It's just a nicer sounding word than put, right? You can use both of them, put your hands on the floor, it's fine, but place sounds just a little bit more elegant. And it's the same in Spanish. So poner is to put, but it's maybe nicer to use what verb in Spanish for to place? What's the verb?
To put, to place.
Ubicar.
That would sound a little bit odd. Ubicamos las manos en el suelo. Yeah.
Yeah, that does sound very weird.
Colocar.
Colocar.
Place. Yeah. Colocamos las manos en el suelo. Place the hands on the floor.
Colocar.
Good. All right. So then somebody mentioned we're going to step backwards. So to step, can anybody help me with that one? That's a slightly tricky one in Spanish.
Pisar.
So yeah, people do say pisar, but I think of the verb pisar as more being like when you're stepping on something. So for example, when you go to, I don't know, like you go to visit a castle or something. When I was in Segovia, it said, por favor, no pises la hierba. Yeah, don't stand on the grass. But I'm not really sure it conveys this tension, this idea of moving the feet. So can anybody help me? What might I say if I want to convey the idea of moving the feet?
Mover.
So the phrase in Spanish is dar un paso, to take a step or to step.
Dar un paso.
Damos un paso. Da un paso. Does that make sense?
Yes.
Give a.
Awesome. Good. Dar un paso, to step. Beautiful. So now we've stepped backwards. So we're going to need tomorrow to work on words like forwards, backwards, close to, far from, on top of, underneath. We'll deal with all of those tomorrow. All right, so we're in plank pose now. What other verbs might we need to come into chaturanga?
To lower.
Nice. So to lower, subir, levantar, elevar, alzar is to lift or raise. What would be to lower?
Bajar.
Bajar. Good. Nice. Okay, so we've lowered into chaturanga. Next come either cobra or urdhva mukha, up dog, depending on where you are. So what is the most direct and straightforward way of bringing someone from chaturanga into up dog?
Push.
So you could push, yeah, maybe.
Straighten.
Straighten, yeah. And what are you going to straighten?
Los brazos.
Yeah, good. So I think people sometimes say press, but you're already pressing into the floor, right? Or people say open the chest. But I think that's a kind of a bit of a confusing cue to try and sort of start to open the chest in chaturanga. The easiest thing is to say straighten or extend the arms. Yeah, so we've already got those. We've got extender and enderezar. And then once you've got the arms straightened, then you can talk about opening. So what verb might we use for to open in Spanish?
Abrir.
Abrir. Good. So abrir, to open. The antonym to that. What do I mean by antonym?
Opposite.
There's something that means the opposite. Yeah, would be cerrar. To close. Can everybody roll their R's? Does anybody have difficulty with their double R in Spanish?
A veces.
A veces. Yeah, I think it's something that's so important to practice because I've come to realize just how sensitive the Spanish ear is for pero and perro. You know, I think because people from birth have been like listening for that difference, they can really, really hear it so clearly. So, cerrar. Yeah, not just cerrar, but cerrar. Okay, good. To close. All right, so we're in urdhva mukha, and we want to come into...
I was, if you don't mind, could I ask, would you cue to flip the feet?
Yeah, that's a really good one.
Flip?
Thank you.
Is there a word for flip?
Yeah, so I want you to bring that up with our two teachers on Thursday. Yeah.
Okay.
Because every single teacher has a different opinion about how we say that. And they all disagree with one another, and they all disagree with what I end up teaching. So yeah, by all means, talk about how to talk about flipping the feet and tucking the toes. Or I think by far the easiest thing to say is to talk about the empeines at this point. It's just to avoid talking about flipping the feet at all, and just say something like colocamos los empeines en la colchoneta if necessary. Yeah.
Excellent. Thank you.
Yeah, no problem. All right. Good. So, right. So we're in up dog, and now we're going to want to come into downward facing dog. So, what would you say is the main movement between up dog and down dog?
Lifting your hips up to the sky.
Yeah, so it's a movement of the pelvis, and the pelvis moves in two different directions, right? It moves upwards and it moves backwards. Now, I think it's important to recognize that there are two verbs that are going to be very, very useful in our asana practice here. One of them is talking about bringing things towards heart center. The other one is talking about bringing things away from heart center. And it's really important to get them right, because I still get corrected from my partner for using these verbs a little bit incorrectly sometimes, and using one where I should be using the other. So here's my question for you. If a friend to you says, oh, come along to my house later this evening, and if you like, bring a bottle of wine, what verb are they going to use there?
Traer.
Traer. Good. So traer is typically used for to bring towards heart center.
I think that, as Andrew, that the person who's speaking is saying, bring it to my house. So that's why I'm thinking traer for that, for your example.
Exactly. Yeah. So traer is anything that moves towards you and that moves towards your heart center. Yeah. So for example, if I'm doing this motion, I'm bringing my palms to heart center. Traemos las palmas al corazón. Right? The other verb that's used for taking something away, you might often hear in a restaurant. Okay? Esta comida es para
Llevar.
llevar. And that's to take away from heart center. So, when we are in upward facing dog, in which direction is the pelvis going to move to come into down dog? Is it going to move towards the heart center or away from the heart center?
Away.
Away from the heart center. So in that context, we're going to use llevamos las caderas, and then you would say upwards and backwards, hacia arriba y atrás. And again, we'll talk about the words upwards and backwards tomorrow. Questions? All right. So for example, if I'm in plank and I want to step the right foot forwards, which verb am I going to use?
That's it.
I could, or I could use the verb,
Colocar.
maybe, or
Traemos.
traer. Good, yeah. So let's bring the foot forwards. Traemos el pie derecho entre las manos, right?
Say place your foot between your hands. Do you think in Spanish it's better to say traer in this
It
situation?
depends. In that context, we're saying bring the foot between the hands, yeah? I mean, you'd presumably, if you're leading a yoga sequence, go for a bit of linguistic diversity. So sometimes you would say, step the foot forwards, bring the foot between the hands, place the foot between the hands. There are so many different correct ways of saying it, right? I'm just trying to give you a little bit of linguistic kind of diversity here. So
tell me the verb
yeah.
you just used now for your feet, because I distracted myself with place.
Yeah, so place, bring, step, all of them are fine.
Okay, I'm confused about traer in this situation.
So traer would be to bring. I mean, you'd say it in English, right? Bring your foot between your hands.
It's like action.
It doesn't look like, it doesn't fit in with my heart center thing though.
Right. Well, it's starting away further from your heart and you're bringing it towards your heart, right? Does that make sense? You're not touching your heart with it, but it's moving in that direction. So it's bring, yeah? Whereas if it were going in the opposite direction, imagine that we're in lunge, our right foot is forward, and we want to take it back into a plank. In that context, I would say, llevamos el pie derecho hacia atrás, a la plancha. Does that make sense?
Yes, I'm just going to not overthink it.
Don't overthink it. I mean, I think you probably already understand it perfectly fine. You would instinctively use traemos el pie entre las manos to step forwards and llevamos el pie atrás to step back. Yeah?
I will now.
All right. Listen out for it. You'll hear a lot of llevar in our teacher sequences. You know, when I'm practicing along with Andrea, when she's teaching in Spanish, she uses llevar all the time, yeah? And it's generally used for something that's moving away from your center, yeah? So another common one, for example, would be if you're in Urdhva Hastasana, llevamos las palmas a la tierra, like take the hands down to the floor. Yeah. So the best way to get this sense of when llevar and traer should be used is just to do a ton of practice in Spanish and listen carefully. Yeah. Because the teachers will use those instinctively correctly. I mean, they're native speakers, so they'll know when it sounds correct. And we just need to pay attention carefully to when they use it. Does that make sense?
Yes. And I already recognize things from today that I keep recognizing things that Kelly said in the little half-an-hour class that I took.
Right. Yeah, no, I cannot recommend enough practicing in Spanish. I mean, when I first started, like I really got into my yoga practice in Spain. And so by the time I did my teacher training, I was almost more used to hearing things in Spanish than I was in English. And then I did, my second teacher training actually in Spanish. That really helped integrate all of these concepts into my head. And now when I'm teaching Anusara style yoga, it sounds to me so much more natural to actually guide in Spanish than it does to use those same phrases in English. So yeah, it's weird, but it's really, really useful. All right, so we're in downward facing dog. There are tons of refinements that you can use in downward facing dog. What kinds of things do people tend to talk about in down dog?
Relax your shoulder.
Yeah, so relax the shoulders, maybe, yeah. I actually talk about engaging the shoulders personally. So to engage is to make something active. And in Spanish, the verb is activar. Good. Personally, I quite like talking about moving the shoulder joint in down dog as well. And I use the verb rotar. Rotar. So to rotate. And I would talk about rotating the shoulders up to the ears, back and down. Yeah? And I might also talk about joining the shoulder blades. So another nice word there for to join is juntar. Join. Okay, any questions so far? Good. All right, let's make this text, or let's, make another slide. So, we're in downward facing dog. Any other verbs that you might like to use in down dog?
Did we go over push? Like if you might not want to cue as much and say like push back into a downward dog and take 3 breaths.
Yeah, so push back. This is again when we have to ask ourselves, what do I mean by push back? Yeah, because these verbs, they don't always translate very well from one language to another. And I think that that's one of those contexts when empujamos las caderas. I suppose you could say that, empujamos las caderas hacia arriba y atrás. People will probably understand you. So yeah, why don't we add push, empujar.
Can we say raise your hips?
Yeah, so elevamos las caderas, absolutely. Mm-hmm.
I guess when I say push, I almost say it like not about a body part, but like push back into this pose.
Yeah.
Right.
And again, that we definitely are going to struggle with because we're using it reflexively, or we're just kind of implying push back. Well, we kind of know that we're talking about the hips, right?
Right.
In Spanish, it's very difficult to leave things implied by the language. You need to say them, yeah? You need to make sure there's always an object there. And we're going to come back to that with reflexive verbs. All right. So from downward facing dog, I think, we've talked about rotar. Rotar is useful because we can also use it for the biceps. We can also use it for the sit bones. We can rotate the sit bones up towards the ceiling. All right. We want now to make the transition from down dog to Ardha Uttanasana. How are we going to do that?
You might say look forward, right?
Yeah, definitely. And I think the first thing that we're going to want to say is look forward or look between the hands. Anyone? What's the verb for to look?
Mirar.
Buscar.
Mirar is to look. Yeah. So miramos entre las manos. And then I usually say something like bend the knees, create curvature in the spine, and then step forward. So we've already got step. Can anybody remind me what it is?
Dar un paseo.
Not un paseo, but un
Paso.
paso. Yeah, un
Paso.
paseo is
Sí,
like
sí, lo siento. Yes, sí,
Okay.
sí.
Yeah. Okay, so damos un paso hacia adelante. Okay, so take a step forwards.
Saltar.
One more time.
Saltar.
Yeah, so we could talk about hopping or jumping. So saltar, to jump, or flotar, float. You're good enough at your transitions. I don't really float, I just jump. Good. Saltar or flotar.
Andrew, do you like saltar better than brincar?
Yeah, I think brincar for me is like what you do on like a bouncy castle. Yeah, like un brincolín they call it, right, in Mexico, or una brinca they call it here. So brincar is for me this kind of like sort of bouncing up and down kind of thing. So personally, I like saltar, but I'm aware that it might be one of those verbs that's used very regionally. So again, I would probably want to check with people in the area that I was teaching. ¿Cómo es que se dice saltar hacia adelante? Aquí se dice brincar o saltar, and then you could check.
Okay.
All right, good. Now, saltar is not to be confused with soltar. What's soltar?
Loosen.
To loosen or
Let go.
release. Yeah, to let go. So for example, soltamos los hombros, release the shoulders. Or soltamos la postura. Yeah? What does soltamos la postura mean?
Let go of the posture.
Yeah, just to release the pose. So especially if we're talking about like a pose that requires a lot of muscular activation, then soltamos la postura would be an appropriate verb to use to release the posture. Okay, we're almost there. So we're in Ardha Uttanasana. How are we going to come into Uttanasana? What would you say in English?
Raise, stand up.
So we're already half raised and we want to forward fold one more time. So mostly you step forwards to a flat back and then you fold, right? So I would probably use the verb relax or fold, doblarse. I'm going to add another verb that I've heard recently, and that is plegarse. What do you think plegarse means?
It means fold in half.
Yeah, to fold in half. So it's particularly appropriate for basically two postures, and that is Uttanasana and Paschimottanasana. So a standing and a seated forward fold. Yeah, plegarse. Yeah. Un pliegue, for example, is like a fold in a garment or in a material, right? So plegarse, pliégate, nos plegamos, is appropriate for those two. All right, so we're in our forward fold. We're going to want to raise now. So we've got those four verbs: subir, levantar, elevar, alzar. And I'm going to suggest that we can use a couple of different phrases to go with them. So one of them is vertebra por vertebra. What do we think that means?
Vertebrae by vertebrae.
Good. So if you're one of those people who likes to roll up to standing, that's a really nice sounding phrase in English, right? Roll up to standing. again, we can't really say roll up to standing literally in Spanish. That just doesn't work. So we need to say subimos vértebra por vértebra. Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah? The other option, of course, is what we call like reverse swan dive. And again, not a phrase that really works very well in Spanish. What we're trying to say there is we're raising with a flat back. So, con la espalda recta. So there are your two options for coming up to standing. Subimos vértebra por vértebra o subimos con la espalda recta. Yeah? So we're in Urdhva Hastasana now. How do we end our sequence?
Palms together, heart and center.
Yeah, so we've got a few different ways of saying. We could say lower the palms to the heart. We could say bring the palms to the heart. So bajamos las palmas al corazón. Traemos las palmas al corazón. Or you could also talk about joining. So juntar, to join. Juntamos las palmas en el corazón. What's the antonym for to join?
Alejar.
Yeah,
Separar.
so separar is a better one. Separar. To separate. Okay, so far so good, no? So those are the verbs that we're going to need mainly for sun salutations. We're going to expand that list greatly over the next couple of weeks. But for today, that's going to do us just fine. Now, what I want to talk about next is how do we deal with conjugating verbs? What does it mean to conjugate?
To say who's doing them?
What's that, sorry?
To explain the subject that's doing the verb.
Yeah, so to conjugate means to give the verb a subject and a tense, right? So, I'm going to give you a couple of options here. Mostly, I recommend people to keep it really, really simple. So, if you're not massively confident with the verbs in Spanish, we're going to use the nosotros form, okay? Why? Because it's extremely, extremely regular. There are almost no verbs that have an irregular nosotros form, all right? So, to make the nosotros form, the we form, so first person plural, we need to, first of all, take the infinitive. The second thing is we remove the R. And the third and final thing is we add mos. And that's it. So it's super easy if you know the infinitive to find the we form. Okay? So, for example, soltar. We're going to take the infinitive, soltar. We're going to remove the R, solta, and then we're going to add mos. Soltamos.
Is that that's not a nosotros command, right? That's just the nosotros form.
That's the nosotros form, but you can guide a whole sequence in the we form in Spanish, okay? In English, it sounds a little odd to say we raise the arms, we forward fold, we straighten our back, we step back into chaturanga. In Spanish, it doesn't sound weird. Subimos los brazos, colocamos las manos en el suelo, damos un paso atrás a chaturanga. That to me sounds totally natural, yeah?
And would it be more common to find someone say them as commands, like as the nosotros commands, like soltemos?
So I want you to forget about what's most common for other people, just for now. and make it easy for yourself. That's the most important piece of advice that I'm going to give you during this language course, is make it easy for yourself. When you get to the stage that you're able to easily play with verbs in all of their different forms, absolutely. Use all of the different forms. Teaching the command form, teaching the I form, use subjunctives, you know? Use the language to all of its sort of capacity and diversity. But if you're not able to literally get the verbs at that super lightning quick speed, make it easy for yourself. Use the we form. For example, soltar. What's the command form? Well, the stem of the verb changes to S-U-E, suelta. Yeah? So again, if you know that, awesome, use it. But again, if you're not super confident with playing around with all of these different verb forms, use the nosotros form of the verb. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Yeah. So when you listen to Andrea and Kelly and Jamie teach, they'll use the I form, they'll use the command form in the singular, they'll use the command form in the plural, they'll use the we form. Yeah, so there's going to be a lot of different verb usages out there. Yeah.
Is it like, you know, like as a teacher, you would tell kids, choose one and stick to it, but do teachers naturally just go back and forth between the I to the command to the we?
So I think getting consistency, at least within a sentence, is important. Yeah. Or within a short sequence, because it sounds really weird if I'm using the command form in the singular and I suddenly switch to the we form plural. Yeah, because it sounds as though I'm switching from talking directly to one person to suddenly talking to a group of people, or vice versa. Yeah, so I would at least, you know, I would avoid saying, okay, separamos los pies al ancho de las caderas, enraizamos la planta en la tierra y sube tus brazos. That just sounds weird to me. Yeah, because we're talking in the we form and then suddenly we've gone to the you singular form. Just keep it one or keep it the other. But certainly, again, if you're not able to produce the commands, like with the snap of a finger, use the nosotros form. People are never going to think, that sounds odd. Yeah, it's going to sound natural to everyone. But again, you'll hear Andrea say, okay, me pongo de pie, subo mis brazos y me doblo. Extiendo mi columna, coloco mis manos en la tierra y doy un paso hacia atrás a la plancha. Bajo mi pecho, a chaturanga, extiendo mis brazos. So you'll hear her teach like that as well. Yeah, great. Okay, so that's the we form. Let's just have a very, very quick go at conjugating the following verbs. So, enraizar, in the we form will be enraizamos. Joanna, what would buscar be in the we form?
Buscamos.
Good. Claire, what about subir?
Subimos.
Excellent. Vicky, levantar?
Levantamos.
Excellent. Catherine, elevar.
Elevamos.
Good. Diane, alzar.
Alzamos.
Good. Juliana, doblar.
Doblamos.
Yeah, so again, this group, we're pretty able with our language. At least the we form, we've got it. We can produce it in an instant. And trust me, when you're guiding sun salutation A, one movement per breath, you need those verbs to be there in a second. Because if you're hesitating, even for an instant, it's going to disrupt your flow. Yeah? Okay, so let's deal now with reflexive verbs. So, what is a reflexive verb? Who can help me with that?
Action doer is the action receiver.
Excellent. Yeah. So the person doing the verb is the same as the person receiving the action of the verb. Now in English, do we have reflexive verbs? The answer is sort of, kind of, in some ways. Yeah? So
Mhm.
when we have a reflexive verb in English, we often use it with the yourself object, okay? So for example, calm yourself down. That's an example of when we might use a reflexive verb, yeah? Calm yourself down. Often in English, we just don't express the object at all. If I said to you, relax, Vicky, relax, the implication is that you're going to relax yourself and you're not going to try and start relaxing the person next to you, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And it's the same if I said to Joanna, stand up. Joanna's going to understand that she's going to stand herself up and she's not going to start trying to get the person up next to her, okay? So in English, the reflexiveness is often implied. In Spanish, unfortunately, we can't expect people just to understand when we imply an action. So if I said to my partner, Tanya, relaja, she's going to be waiting there, kind of hanging around and saying, pero ¿qué voy a relajar? Relajo mis hombros, relajo mi cuerpo, me relajo a mí misma, yeah? ¿Qué voy a relajar? Yeah? And again, if I said to Tanya, Tanya, dobla. Pero ¿qué voy a doblar? ¿Voy a doblar mi ropa? ¿Voy a doblar mi cuerpo? ¿Me doblo? Yeah? So we can't just assume that people are going to understand the object in Spanish. People are going to be waiting around to hear things. So we're going to need with verbs to make them reflective. So if I say to someone, stand up, kneel down, lie down, root yourself, bend forwards, relax, sit, all of those are verbs that are going to require an object. And usually that object is yourself, okay? So the infinitive of reflexive verbs ends in se, acostarse, doblarse, enraizarse, estirarse, ponerse de pie, sentarse, right? But again, that se that's in the end of the verb is going to change when we start putting it into its different persons. So let's come back to our slide. Now, the se becomes nos, okay? And we put the nos before the verb. So for example, sentarse. First of all, I'm going to remove the se, and I'm going to make it nos, and I'm going to place it in front of the verb. Nos sentarse, nos sentar, sorry. And then I'm going to need to make the sentar part into the we form. So what is sentar in the we form?
Sentamos.
Yeah, so we remove the R and we add mos. Nos sentamos. Okay, so sentarse, nos sentamos. Let's have a look at the other reflexive verbs here. Acomodarse. Juliana, can you help me with acomodarse in the we form?
Acomodarse. Acomodamos.
Good, and you're just missing the se part, so what does that become?
Which part?
The se part becomes nos, right? Where does it
Nos.
go?
Acomodamos.
Yeah. It needs to come before the verb, so nos acomodamos.
Nos acomodamos.
Yeah. So if I wanted to say to somebody, hey, get comfy on your mat, I would say, nos acomodamos en nuestra colchoneta, right? Get comfy on your mat. Good. Diane, what about acostarse? How would we make that into the we form?
Nos acostamos.
Excellent. Nos acostamos en la tierra. Let's lie down. Good. Catherine, arrodillarse.
Nos arrodillamos. Oh, that's a hard one. Nos arrodillamos.
Good. Nos arrodillamos. Let's kneel down. Good. Okay. What about balancearse? Vicky?
Let's see. Nos balanzamos. Balanceamos.
Eso. Nos balanceamos. Very good. Okay. Claire, what about doblarse?
Nos doblamos.
Excellent. You'll hear that a million times in your Spanish asana practices with Jamie, Andrea, and Kelly. Nos doblamos. Good. Okay. Enraizarse. Joanna? So I don't know if you're on mute, but we can't quite hear you. Oh.
Nos enraizamos.
Excellent. Nos enraizamos. Thank you so much. Juliana, what about equilibrarse?
Let's
Sí.
no equilibrarse. How do you say the word?
Almost there. So nos equilibrar, and then you need the ending.
Equilibrar somos.
So remember that we've already taken the se away. So we forget about the se. And all we need to do now is remove the R and add mos. So nos equilibra mos.
Sorry, that sounds really hard to say. Nos equilibran.
Equilibramos. So
Equilibramos.
I'm going to walk you through that step by step. Okay? So let's have a look here. Equilibrarse. So it's important to notice that a QU in Spanish is not a qu sound, it's a k sound. Okay? So it's not equilibrar, it's equilibrar.
Oh.
Okay? So the first thing that I'm going to do here is I'm going to remove se. And I'm going to put it in front of the word nos. Okay? So now we've dealt with the se, we can forget about it. Now, equilibrar. What do I need to do next, Juliana?
Nos equilibran.
So I need to remove the R next, right?
Yeah. And put an M-O-S.
And then put an MOS, you've got it. So what's the final word?
Nos equilibramos.
You've got it. Excellent. Well done. Nos equilibramos. Excellent. Good. Okay, Diane, what about estirarse?
Nos estiramos.
Excellent. Well done. Mecerse, Catherine?
Nos meceramos.
Not quite.
Meserimos.
One more time.
Nos meserimos.
So let's have a look again. Let's work this out. So, mecerse. So first of all, we're going to remove the se, and that becomes nos, and we're left with mecer. What do we do next?
Mesimos.
Mecemos. Yes, we remove the R and we add mos. Nos mecemos. Yeah, so don't forget to remove the R there. Okay. Vicky, you've got a slightly more challenging one. Ponerse de
Great. Which one? I'm sorry.
Ponerse de pie.
Okay. How about nos ponemos de pie?
Hooray, you've done it. Nos ponemos de pie. Very good. Nos ponemos de pie. Well done. Relajarse, Claire.
Nos relajamos.
Excellent. And finally, sentarse. Joanna.
Nos sentamos.
Easy, no? So don't worry if reflexive verbs sound a little bit confusing and challenging to begin with. For me, it's really about just practicing and practicing and practicing and practicing until it becomes really instinctive, okay? And you're just going to get a sense of when you should use a reflexive verb and when you shouldn't. So let's have a look at one final example before we go on to our little practice session. What is the problem with this sentence? Okay, and then what is the problem with the following sentence? Okay, so the first one, nos relajamos las piernas. What's the issue there?
2 objects.
That you've got 2 objects, so you've made it both reflexive and then you've given it another object as well. So it's like in English saying, we relax ourselves the legs, which sounds really odd, right? So in Spanish, it sounds much better to say, nos relajamos, or, so we either get rid of the object, or we say, relajamos las piernas. One or the other, but not both. Okay, encontrar means to meet or to find. So if I wanted to say, let's meet in Shavasana, and I said, encontramos en Shavasana, what's the problem there?
Nos encontramos.
Yeah, we're missing an object. So we need to say, nos encontramos en Shavasana. Good. Any questions so far?
I think that I may have not fully understood this when you were saying that you can go, nosotros is obviously the easiest one to start with, but would you ever use like usted and then you would use say for this?
So if I get you right, do you mean the usted command?
Or just usted, not command, just present tense. Would you ever use that?
Ustedes se van a encontrar, ustedes se encuentran, and yeah, so if you're using the usted form, the say doesn't change, but it still needs to go in front of the verb. Yeah?
Sure. So I'm just thinking, saying generally, would you ever cue using that present tense usted?
Do I ever use the present tense in usted? Yeah, all the time. I mean, I don't usually talk to large groups of people in a formal setting. So, but obviously here in Colombia, they don't use the vosotros form at all. So if I'm talking to more than one person, ustedes van a seguir hasta el fondo de la calle, van a voltear a la derecha y ahí encuentran la tienda, for example, yeah? So yeah, all the time I use the usted.
But while teaching, you don't use I meant like while teaching.
While teaching, no. While teaching, I would always use the we form, the I form, or the you singular form. Yeah.
So the informal is what you use, the tu form, right?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Because
I think.
I noticed that's what Kelly used also today.
It just, to me, it sounds wrong to start speaking formally to people in a yoga context. It really does. It creates this kind of artificial distance. When would I use usted? I would use usted if I'm doing something kind of formal, if I'm in the bank, if I'm doing some kind of, process with the government or something like that. It's polite to use the usted form there. It's also polite for me if I'm talking to somebody who's kind of senior to me in age, for example. If it's an elderly person, I'd probably also want to use the usted form there. But if I'm giving them a yoga class, I want to establish that sort of personal connection, that rapport, and I'm going to want to use the tu form for sure.
The present tense, or you would use the command?
Either. Yeah, I mean, mostly we're giving people instructions and commands, right, in Spanish?
Mm-hmm.
So, yeah. Okay, awesome. So we're going to do 2 things now. So the first thing is, I'm going to divide us back into our groups before. I want you to go back to the verbs that you've written down in English, yeah, underneath your sun salutations. And I want you to put them in the first person, plural, the nosotros form of the present tense in Spanish. Does that make sense? So, for example, you might have stand. And in that context, I would say, nos ponemos de pie. Okay? You might have for Urdhva Hastasana, raise. And in that context, I would translate the verb into elevamos. So I don't want you to translate whole sentences here. It's just the verb. Okay? So what are you going to be doing in your breakout groups?
Writing the verbs in Spanish under where we wrote them in English.
Exactly. And we're going to put it in which form?
Nosotros.
The nosotros form. Excellent. Great. So I'm going to give you around about 5 minutes to do that. And then we're going to do a little practice together. Okay? All right. So whenever you're ready, you can go ahead and click on your room.
Oh, there you go. There's more. I was like, is it just us two?
Oh, there's 3 of us.
Perfect. But now
Juliana is here.
there you go.
Okay, so we have root was one of our first verbs, enraizar. So if we conjugate that into the we form, it would be
Nos enraizamos.
mm,
Nos
okay.
What else do we have? Activamos.
Nos activamos. We had lift and lengthen.
Alargamos. So you could say like alargamos la columna, right? Or
Alargamos los.
Nos alargamos. Alargamos el espinaca.
you say when you have a noun after it, right? That becomes an object, so you don't need the nos, right?
You want to say lengthen your arms, then you wouldn't have
right.
nose. Alargamos los brazos.
Alargamos.
So mostly that's what we'll be doing. We won't be using them reflexively. Extendemos los brazos.
It's funny because I feel like in Tadasana is one where you could actually say like use a reflexive and kind of say like and relax or like and
Yeah, nos relajamos. That makes a lot of sense.
yeah.
Relaxing.
Like, yeah.
Nos juntamos las manos.
Mm-hmm.
Juntamos las manos, juntarse. So are we going to say juntamos las manos?
Juntamos las manos. Yes.
Like you would say, bring your hands together above your head. Is that what you mean?
We put our hands together. We could say juntamos las manos enfrente del pecho, or I don't know, al corazón.
Mm-hmm.
Soltamos.
So remember that I don't want full sentences. I just want the verbs. Yeah?
Okay. Saltamos.
Saltamos.
Saltamos. Estiramos.
Estiramos. Separados.
Bajamos. We have, oh, go ahead.
Flotamos.
Flotamos. We have exhalamos y inhalamos.
Colocamos.
Colocamos.
Damos un paso.
Miramos.
Ujú.
Abrimos.
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 We didn't ask about flow through. If there was something like that.
That flow. He said that that's lots of different ways to say it. And we're supposed to ask.
Yeah. Well, I think that was for the rollover. Remember we had said like flow through a chaturanga or like something.
Flotar. Do you think that could be a flotar opportunity?
I don't know.
Flotamos.
So flow through, again, that's a very idiomatic English phrase that doesn't have a direct translation into Spanish. I mean, I think that the easiest way is to say, hacemos nuestra vinyasa, yeah? Because the word vinyasa you can use in Spanish.
Okay. What other verbs do we have left here? Doblamos.
Get one for squeeze.
Apretar.
Oh, apparently reach. Oh no, I was gonna say it's llegar, but that's to arrive somewhere, reach. Extend arm is alcanzar. We had that for some, oh no, that's, okay.
We can ask.
So it's alcanzamos.
Alcanzamos.
Mm-hmm.
Did he say to open?
Abrimos.
Abrimos.
And then lengthen was extendemos, no?
Sí.
Sí. So for chaturanga, bajamos.
Sí, bajamos. We had to straighten, or no, to lower. Yeah, bajamos. To step back would be damos un paseo.
What is it?
To step would be damos
It's
un paso. I keep saying paseo. I don't know why I want to say that every time. Damos un paso.
Take a walk.
No, I'm like, I want to take a walk apparently in this part.
Yes, yeah, you're right.
Don't take a walk, just simply take a step.
What about hold?
I don't know that.
Agarrar.
Oh, okay.
Agarramos.
So what context are you using the word hold in here?
Do you mean like
To hold a plank? I don't know.
Yeah, in that context, you definitely cannot use the word agarrar. So in that case, it's the same as the word sustain, yeah? So sostenemos. Yeah, sostenemos la plancha durante 5 respiraciones. Hold plank for 5 breaths.
Sostenemos, okay.
Sostenemos. Okay, just going to give you a couple more minutes.
Did we say push?
No, we discussed why we wouldn't use push, right?
Right, yeah.
Because then it would be kind of inferred of what you would push.
Right.
What about roll? Oh, we did that one was the subimos vertebra por vertebra or con la espalda recta.
Do you mean, Joanna, to roll your shoulders, or do you mean to roll up?
Oh yeah.
No, I didn't say roll. I said push. Wait, are we still on chaturanga or are we on up dog?
It doesn't matter. I wasn't sure. I thought for some reason I thought you said roll.
No, I said push.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, we should probably move to up dog since we only have a minute.
Well, in up dog is roll. We did say roll for up dog.
See. Okay. Oh.
Okay, welcome back, everyone. So I think that's everyone now. Great. Did anyone have any questions before we begin our little practice today?
Yeah.
Push? In what context?
Like you said not to use it, right?
No, I didn't say that. I said I think that it sounds a bit more elegant to use other words sometimes, but you can definitely use push for sure. I mean, push the hips backwards, push the hands into the ground. Yeah, for sure. You can use push.
One of my small meeting group ladies, we were talking about spread, like spread your fingers.
That's a great question. So I think estiramos or separamos, yeah? So estirar or separar, stretch or separate are the two words. And you might even like to use like a little metaphor there, because my teacher always says, you know, estiramos los dedos como rayos del sol, like sun rays, you know? So you can use nice little things there, for example.
I'm sorry I keep bringing up Kelly every 2 seconds. People are probably getting sick of that. But she said, como una estrella. Separamos los dedos como una estrella.
That's one thing to notice is that Spanish teachers can be very poetic and very descriptive. Spanish is a language that really lends itself to kind of being more poetic than English, I think. So definitely listen out for those things. All right. So we're gonna finish class with 10 minutes of practice now. So I want you to find a comfortable space that you can move around in. You can still hear me. And I'm going to guide you through sun salutation A and B, and then a short standing flow. I'm going to use, first of all, the we form, and then I'm going to use the command forms. You can hear how the U plant form sounds like as well. Okay, so you ready? Vamos a empezar de pie en el inicio de la colchoneta. Listo. Voy a ver si... Ah, ya. Perfecto.
Okay.
Ok, muy bien. Activamos los pies, metemos el coxis por debajo, alargamos la columna y rotamos los hombros hacia arriba, hacia atrás y hacia abajo, conectando los omóplatos. Relajamos el rostro. Con la inhalación, elevamos los brazos sobre la cabeza en Urdhva-sthasana. Exhalamos y nos doblamos en Uttanasana. Muy bien. Inhalamos, estiramos la columna y enderezamos la espalda. Con la exhalación, colocamos las manos en la tierra. Inhalamos y damos un paso hacia atrás en la plancha. Perfecto. Exhalamos y bajamos el pecho a Chaturanga. Inhalamos, enderezamos los brazos y elevamos el pecho en Urdhva Mukha Svanasana. Exhalamos y llevamos las caderas hacia arriba y atrás en Adho Mukha Svanasana. Respiramos 3 veces. Rotamos los isquiones hacia el cielo. Alargamos los costados del torso y bajamos los talones hacia el suelo. Con la inhalación, miramos entre las manos y damos un paso hacia adelante. Exhalamos y nos doblamos. Subimos vértebra por vértebra, estiramos las manos sobre la cabeza, Urdhva Hastasana. Exhalamos, bajamos manos al pecho en Samastiti. Got you with that one. All right. Good. So that was very simple language in the we form. Now notice, I'm going to make my language a bit more complex now as we come into Sun Salutation B. So listen carefully how I begin to enrich my language a little bit. Okay. Averigüe que los bordes internos de tus pies estén alineados y sube los dedos. Nota cómo se activa el arco y manteniendo esta integridad en el pie, desciende los deditos a la colchoneta. Inhala, flexiona tus rodillas y siéntete hacia atrás en una silla. Sube los brazos en Utkatasana. Excelente. Exhala, pliégate hacia adelante y hacia abajo. Inhala, extiende la columna y mira entre las manos. Con la exhalación, lleva los pies hacia atrás y toma una inhalación. Exhala y bájate por completo sobre el tapete. Inhala y sube el pecho en la cobra o en perro que mira hacia arriba. Exhala y extiende tus caderas hacia arriba y atrás en perro mirando hacia abajo. Muy bien. Con la inhalación, trae el pie derecho entre las manos. Verifica que tu talón derecho esté por debajo de la rodilla y que el talón izquierdo esté por encima de los deditos. Sube el torso en Guerrero 1. Excelente. Muy bien. Respira. Tracciona una pierna hacia la otra y nota la activación en los muslos. Baja los brazos al suelo y da un paso hacia atrás en la plancha. Baja todo el cuerpo al suelo. Inhala, extiende tus brazos y abre el pecho en cobra. Exhala y vuelve al perro boca abajo. Inhala y da un paso con el pie izquierdo entre las manos. Eleva el torso y los brazos hacia el cielo en Guerrero 1. Muy bien. Pausa, respira, siente. Exhala y vuelve a la plancha. Desciende todo el cuerpo al suelo. Inhala y sube tu pecho en la cobra. Y con la exhalación, lleva tus caderas hacia arriba y atrás en el perro que mira hacia abajo. Y toma 3 respiraciones aquí. Flexiona un poquito las rodillas, rota tus isquiones hacia el cielo y alarga los costados del torso. Muy bien. Para terminar el saludo, mira entre las manos, flexiona las rodillas y crea curvatura en la columna. Camina o salta hacia adelante y dóblate con la exhalación. Inhala, flexiona tus rodillas y sube el pecho y los brazos en Utkatasana, la silla. Exhala y vuelve a Tadasana. Relaja los brazos a los costados. Toma un momento para reconectar con la respiración. Muy bien. Okay, excellent. So, very simple language in the first sun salutation, slightly more complicated language in the second. Now we're going to come into a short standing sequence, yeah, with even more complex language. So just notice how I'm building these layers here, okay? Asegúrate de estar en la parte delantera de tu colchoneta y verifique que tus pies están nuevamente al ancho de las caderas. Eleva los deditos de tus pies, activa las 4 esquinas de tus plantas y siente cómo se activa la energía en tus pantorrillas y tus muslos. Desciende los dedos al suelo. Con la inhalación, flexiona tus rodillas, roza el suelo con tus manos y sube los brazos y pecho en una silla. Siente cómo se activa la energía desde tus piernas y siéntate un poco más. Flexiona tus codos y abre los brazos en forma de un cactus. Activa tus dedos de las manos y siente cómo crea compromiso en todo el brazo y el hombro. Muy bien, perfecto las formas. Rota los hombros hacia las orejas, hacia atrás y abajo. Desde tu corazón expresa tu valentía. Extiende los brazos por completo con la inhalación. Exhala y desciende por completo a Uttanasana. Inhala, abre tu pecho y mira hacia adelante. Exhala, coloca las manos en la tierra, camina o salta atrás en una plancha. Inhala aquí. Exhala, desciende por completo a la colchoneta. Muy bien. Coloca las manos fuera del tapete en copa y gira las palmas en diagonal. Desde tu corazón, con valentía, empuja contra la tierra y sube un poquito más en tu cobra. Exhala y desciende. Coloca las manos debajo de los hombros y lleva tu cadera hacia atrás y hacia arriba a perro boca abajo. Ok, terminamos aquí. Con la inhalación, flexiona tus rodillas, crea curvatura en la columna y salta o camina hacia adelante. Exhala y pliégate en Uttanasana. Con la inhalación, dobla tus rodillas, roza el suelo con tus manos y sube los brazos y pecho en una silla. Flexiona los codos y abre los brazos en forma de cactus. Nuevamente, activa los dedos de la mano y crea compromiso en el brazo y omóplato. Exhala, extiende las piernas y relaja las manos a los costados. Pausa aquí en Tadasana, respira y siente. Okay, well done everyone. So, different levels of language. So you can see how I can begin to really, really, really simplify. Especially if I'm doing sun salutation A, I want there to be a quick movement, yeah? Use the we form and make your sentences extremely brief. When you want to start building the layers of the language, then you can start talking about sort of adding these kind of layers of complexity. What are we engaging? What are we moving? How are we refining our asana? Okay. How did you find practicing the asana today? Were you able to follow along okay?
Yes and no.
Yes and no?
Yeah, the third was really hard.
Which is fine.
I get confused a little bit in the third one also.
Yeah, no problem. So remember that I'm using a lot of language that we haven't come across yet. What your goal is just to recognize those words that you can make sense out of, yeah? To hear what we've studied and just to kind of try and follow along. Obviously, it's difficult because I'm not doing the practice. Generally, when I teach, I tend not to practice along with my students because I like to be able to observe what people are doing. So that's going to add like an additional layer of challenge to you there. Okay, so for homework for tomorrow, there's a couple of things that I'd like you to do. The first thing is to choose 13 brand new verbs and learn them. So if the verbs that we did today are kind of familiar to you already, take a look at your handouts. You're going to find a lot of extra verbs there and learn 13 brand new words for tomorrow. The second thing that I would like for you to do is to think of a short sequence of between 8 to 12 postures. Okay? Now, in English, and this is absolutely vital, in English, think about the most simple way you can cue people into those postures. So between 1 and maximum 3 cues per pose. Does that make sense? And I want you to write those instructions out in English. So what is this task? What are we trying to accomplish? We're trying to learn how to simplify, yeah? To think simply, so that we can then begin to compose simple sentences in Spanish, yeah? And once you've nailed the simple sentences, you can begin to build these layers of complexity, one on top of the other. Does that make sense?
Yes.
Okay, great. So what are the 2 parts of homework?
Choose 13 new words.
13 new verbs, yeah. What's the second part?
Think of a short sequence, 8 to 10 postures, and simplify the cues, 1 to 3 cues for each.
Exactly, and write those 1 to 3 cues down in English. All right, perfect. Well done, everybody. As always, I'm going to share this video with you. Make sure that you're still practicing with Kelly, Andrea, and Jamie. And I will see you all tomorrow evening. We're going to talk about prepositions, directions, parts of the yoga studio, and we're going to start actually practicing teaching one another tomorrow. You'll be all ready to go.
All right, great.
Have a lovely evening, everyone.
Thank you very much.
My pleasure. Ciao for now.
Bye-bye.
Bye.